Hey guys, Aisha here, and I'm going to do this video a little differently because I've already filmed it and my mic was off the entire time. Yay. So, let's redo it. But yeah, it's going to be a little different as you're going to see. So Betty Boop, an American icon that was created in 1930s and still going today apparently. So, in the 1930s, Betty Boop was introduced to the world by Max Fleischer. Max Fleischer, he started as a newspaper comic artist, and in 1914 he saw someone else create moving cartoons, moving comics, and he wanted to do that as well. He wanted his cartoons to move. So he got into animation, and in 1930 he created the Betty Boop cartoon. But Betty Boop started off first as a dog, a dancing, singing dog who would wag her ears. And the following year, she turned into the sex symbol you know today. I did read that at one point she was African American, like early on in the 1930s when she was first brought onto the scene. Apparently there's an old Popeyes episode where she's black. So that's interesting. That would be cool to find, but yeah. So, yeah, a year later she was created into a sex symbol that we know today with her curves and her va-va-voom. Okay. Yeah, with her curves and her soft voice and all that. She was the epitome of the male gaze. The heterosexual male gaze. And over time she just became more and more of a sex symbol. Until one point where the Catholic Church shut that down. When did that happen? Yeah, it was becoming too much for their modest values and they did not like it. In fact, they had a huge say in what was shown, apparently. The National Legion of Decency in the 1930s kind of put a halt to some of the hypersexuality in the Betty Boop cartoons. And they were staunchly Catholic. They censored some of the more objectionable content, and as a result, Betty Boop started wearing less revealing clothing. Supposedly, I don't know. Everything I saw her in, she was still pretty short, pretty tight. So I don't know. Like, what was she wearing before? I don't know. Whatever. But yeah. So that was a little bit about Betty Boop, where she came from. So I thought it was interesting too. She was also depicted as a virgin, apparently, which I don't understand why that would matter. I guess it wasn't a kid's cartoon. Maybe it was more so of an adult type cartoon. All I know is kids were watching it, but yeah. And she was often fighting off endless parades of men constantly from like every cartoon I remember seeing of her. She was fighting off men at some point, some extent. So anyway, let's talk about Ester Jones, aka Baby Esther, aka Little Esther, aka Little Esther. She most often went by Little Esther or Little Esther. Ester Jones was a child entertainer. She was a trained singer, dancer, and acrobat. And she is more famous for performing at the Cotton Club in Harlem. She was born in Chicago, Illinois, the Negro side of Chicago, Illinois, of course. And the dates of her birth are kind of weird. It was kind of hard to find real good information about her, reliable information, just because the dates were off. Like, they didn't keep good records of black people. I'm gonna just say that. They did not keep good records of black people at all. I could not find her death date. She was just presumed dead. Her birth date, I saw multiple ones. So no one could really pinpoint it, but it was somewhere between the 19 teens and 1920. So somewhere between that, she was born. So aside from singing, dancing, and general performing, she was also famous for the funny faces she would make, including rolling her eyes, which Betty Boop does a ton of in her cartoons if you haven't seen them, and also her unique voice. But even more famously were her interpolated nonsense sounds that she would make add to her singing, which included phrases like boo boo boop and boo doo boo boo beep dee doop. So supposedly Betty Boop was modeled after several different women, but she was specifically created as a parody of one woman, and this woman's name was Helen Kane. Max Fleischer created Betty Boop out of a parody of her, supposedly. And Helen Kane was very popular at that time. Helen Kane was so popular at that time that she decided to sue Max Fleischer for stealing her likeness. In 1932, that's when she sued Max Fleischer Studios for $250,000. And $250,000 is a lot of money right now. It's $250,000. It was a ton of money back then in the 1930s. She claimed they stole her singing style and catchphrases, which she invented all on her own. However, as I stated before, back in the late 1920s, baby Esther Jones, had this same style that she performed in the Cotton Club, with her flirtatious style, her fluttering bob, her scatting. It was all very unique to her siren's voice. It was all very, very unique at the time. So when Helen Kane took Max Fleischer to court for using her likeness, it quickly became known that she stole that likeness from Esther Jones. Max Fleischer brought out Esther's first manager as his defense, part of his defense. His name was Lou Bolton, and he testified for the defense that in 1925 he trained a little young Negro girl named Esther, teaching her to interpolate scatting into her songs, such as boo did do dee, and so on and so forth and what have you. And he also testified that Kane saw one of Esther Jones's performances back in 1928. It was at the Everglades restaurant, and it was before Helen Kane went on to do her performance at the New York Paramount Theater. Fleischer also produced evidence to his defense of Esther Jones performing. And I mean, you couldn't deny the resemblance. The film showed Esther Jones singing 3 songs that were later popularized by Helen Kane. And the 3 songs were Don't Be Like That, Is There Anything Wrong With That, and Wada Wada. Wada Da. Yeah. Well, the footage of Esther Jones performing was the nail in Helen Kane's legal coffin. They ruled against her. She lost. And it was revealed that Esther Jones invented Helen Kane, and by extension, she invented Betty Boop. But by the time the case was done in 1934, no one could find Esther Jones. And I'm not sure if they were actually going to pay her, give her some sort of recognition or whatever, but they said they couldn't find her, and she was presumed dead. But which was kind of weird because she was super young, so why would she be presumed dead? But I don't know. Times were rough back then. And even though Kane lost the case, she continued to be the face of Betty Boop. And she is the name most associated with Betty Boop still, which is unfortunate because she lied and stole everything and then tried to sue for something she stole. And Esther Jones never really got the recognition she deserved, even though she was a child entertainer and still very talented and did tons of performances and won awards and everything. She's still not really talked about this to this day like Betty Boop is. Betty Boop has become an American icon, and Esther Jones is kind of just faded into the background, and nobody's really talking about her performances from the 1920s. But I don't want you to think that Esther Jones was just like sitting somewhere crying in the dark or anything. She was still a great performer, and she toured Europe in 1929. Between the 1930s and 1934, between 1930 and 1934, she toured South America, and in 1934 she performed for the NAACP along with a bunch of other African American entertainers. But she still didn't get the recognition she deserved from Betty Boop, because she deserved that. She deserved all that. And also, I don't want you to think that because Esther Jones' likeness was used to create Betty Boop that they were progressive in any sort of way. There are still plenty of racially insensitive Betty Boop episodes. Plenty. They include caricatures of black people, minstrel type drawings of black people with sandbone lips, the giant caricature lips, yeah. Plenty. Oozing through those cartoons from the 1920s and 30s. And not to mention that white people stole from Esther Jones and she got nothing from it. So yeah, the fact that Helen Kane stole from Esther Jones and then attempted to sue for something she stole and claim it as her own is one of the most disgusting and infuriating things about America today, and one of the most common narratives. And also the fact that she continued to profit off of it even after she lost the court case and it came out that she was lying the entire time. And not much has changed today. Case in point, look at TikTok. All those kids doing the dances that black people created, the black creatives created, and you don't hear about them. You don't hear about them. You hear about those kids doing the dances off beat. Yeah, they're not even doing the dances as good as the people who created the dances. And it's just like they're getting famous from it while the original creators are getting nothing from it. But yeah, it's exactly like that. And it continues. It's buried in America's history. And it's not really buried. It's still there. It's still here. It's blatantly obvious. Like, even, like, case in point, Helen Kane lost the case and she still continued to profit from it. So it's like, how can you win? Even when it comes out that they didn't create this, they didn't make this, they stole this. It's just, that is American history, isn't it? To just steal and make a profit from it, huh? That's something. But anyway, whenever you see the Betty Boop merch, the Nikes with Betty Boop on it and all that, just remember Esther Jones. Because she did not get the recognition she deserves. Helen Kane is just typical. She's typical. She's typical. And she's everywhere. She's everywhere. She's... it's a typical story, isn't it? But yeah. Whenever you see Betty Boop, keep Esther Jones in mind and pass it on to your friends and family and let them know as well. And do some more research about it on your own to find out more about it. It is a very interesting story. She did seem to be a very talented young lady. She was super young. And I wish I could find out when she actually died. Like, how old was she when she died? Because, I mean, she seemed to be very famous. I mean, she performed at tons of places, so I don't understand how could people just lose track of her like that. But yeah, that is it. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know whatever you find out about this as well. Thanks. Bye.